A pregnant woman in Texas received a ticket, a moving violation, for driving in a high occupancy vehicle in the so-called carpool lane, also known as the HOV lane, which requires, of course, 2 or more people to be in the vehicle in order to take advantage of that lane. Now, Brandy Bottone, who is the woman who received the ticket, is saying, look, I actually didn't break the law because I'm pregnant. And according to Texas state law, I have an independent human being inside my womb who should count as a passenger in this vehicle. So she was 34 weeks pregnant at the time of this incident. It happened last month. Here she is explaining exactly what happened.
I got pulled over and the officer said, okay, well, you're in an HOV lane. And I said, yes. And he said, great. Is there somebody else in the car? And looking around, I said, well, yes, there is. And he said, well, where? As he's peeking in the car, and I pointed to my stomach. I was like, we're right here. And he said, well, it's 2 bodies outside of the body, so that doesn't count. And so I just kind of was in shock, and I was like, well, in light of everything that's happened, and I'm not trying to make a huge political stance here, but do you understand that this is a baby? And he kind of just brushed me off and asked me to go to the other officer to get my citation.
Okay, so a lot of interesting things happened after the fact, okay? So for instance, she was also a little irritated with the officer because of what the officer had told her during this stop. The first officer waved me on to the next cop who gave me a citation and said, quote, if you fight it, it will most likely get dropped, but they still gave me a ticket. So my $215 ticket was written because inconvenience. This has my blood boiling. How could this be fair? According to the new law, this is a life. And to be sure, in Texas, the state's penal code recognizes a fetus as a person, but the Texas Transportation Code does not. She emphasized that while she believes women should have a choice on what they do with their bodies, that's not saying I'm also pro-choice. She noted that she also drove in the HOV lane when she was pregnant with her first child, her 6-year-old son. So she's trying to make a point about how I'm not trying to be political here. I'm just saying you gotta be consistent, right? If you consider this a human life, then that means I have a passenger in the vehicle with me. But I do wanna go to a woman named Amy O'Donnell. She is with the Texas Alliance for Life. She's a spokesperson with them. And it just shows you how they love to point to a fetus as an independent human life when it's convenient for them and when they want to strip rights away from women. But when it comes to situations like this, all of a sudden unborn fetus is not an independent human life. While the penal code in Texas recognizes an unborn child as a person in our state, the Texas Transportation Code does not specify the same. And a child residing in a mother's womb is not taking up an extra seat. And with only one occupant taking up a seat, the car did not meet the criteria needed to drive in that lane.
Yeah, so let me translate for you guys. It is a human being when we want to punish women and say you have to carry to term even if it's rape, incest, or any regular situation, and we want to take away your rights. But it is not a person when we want to punish women and make them pay a fine for going in the HOV lane, and we don't really mean it anyway. It's just an excuse to punish women either
100%.
way. So the thing that's consistent is not whether the Texas considers it a life or not, it's the punishing women part. So look, they punish everybody for the HOV lane, not just women, right? But if they actually believed that it was an independent life, well then she's in the HOV lane and there's 2 people in the car. They don't actually believe. They're like, no, I want the money, Lebowski. I'm gonna fine you and I'm gonna finance my cops and all that stuff with this. So it's just calling their bluff.
No, more importantly, if you're a pregnant woman, you should automatically be able to claim that fetus as a dependent when you file your taxes. And you should get whatever tax credits, whatever tax deductions come along with having children. And by the way, that is definitely justified because when you're pregnant, guess what you have to deal with? The costs of maternal care, which, this government, both on a federal level and in many cases on a state level, doesn't provide much support for. So what? Even if it's an ectopic pregnancy, these red states believe that it is an independent human life at the moment of conception, before that fertilized egg implants itself on the uterine wall, right? Yeah. So even if you don't know whether or not you're pregnant, why not just claim the deduction? I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
I was pregnant, and it turned out that the pregnancy just didn't implant on the uterine wall, but still, I had an independent human life at some period of time in my uterus. As a result, I should get that tax deduction. Why not?
Yeah.
Why not?
Well, part of the reason the Republicans would say is, no, we don't care about people at all.
They don't.
So we don't want to get you out of the ticket or give you a deduction, or would give you maternal care anyway. We don't give you paid family leave. We don't give you child tax credit. We don't help our maternal deaths and child deaths during pregnancy are all horrible and the worst in the red states. How many times and how many different ways do we have to explain to you? We don't care about people, especially women. The only thing we care about is zygotes and fetuses, because that allows us to control women.
Exactly, and punish them.
Yeah, and last thing here is I hope she doesn't win, because it's just more precedent on this absurdity. And I know she's saying it's not political, and I appreciate the rhetorical, strategy here. But overall, she says she wants women to be able to control their bodies, but she's not pro-choice. What does that mean? People are so confused. They have no idea.
I think what it means is that up until now, she was a private citizen who doesn't know what it's like to deal with the wrath of Republican people, maybe some Democrats who are probably harassing her now. So she's trying to back away from making a political statement, which too late, sorry, you made a political statement. And by the way, I don't even care what her politics are. The point she makes is an interesting one, because you can't have it both ways. If you think a zygote or an embryo is the equivalent of an independent, living, breathing, viable human being outside the womb, you're insane. And you're a liar, you don't actually think that. And if you genuinely care about preserving life, then you wouldn't be running around crying about having to put a mask on your face in the middle of a pandemic dealing with a highly contagious virus. It's not about life and death, it's about control, it's about accumulating political power and nothing more. So I like the fact that she made that point, because it calls them out on their bluff, No,
you're right, and that's why the story is interesting. And Texas just proved that they're liars. They're like, oh no, when it comes to punishing you, we don't consider it a life at all. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR, so those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.